I was talking about in the store. Something like this. Hitting stuff as it goes along. Still on your belt. Hi, this is Kevin at Fin Feather Fur Outfitters in Rossford, Ohio. I fished a Buckeye Kayak Fishing Trail Series over the weekend on East-West Harbor, the last lake event of the year, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thank you. So I launched at East Harbor State Park. You can fish West Harbor also, but I decided I pre-fished here, so I'm gonna stay here. It's kind of windy that day, but it's still a good day. It's about 5 minutes after 7, which the tournament started at 7, and I catch my first fish. I had reached this rock wall that I planned on fishing. There was another guy there, so I let him know I'd fish the one end if he wants to fish the other end. Unfortunately, there was somebody already at the other end, so I went right in the middle. And so, like I said, 5 minutes into the tournament, I had my first fish. I think it was around 16 and a half, maybe around there. It was kind of windy, so it kept on, you'll see here, I probably push off a couple times because it blows me into the rocks. I really wanted to fish the end behind me, but I couldn't because there was somebody already there. I only stayed there a short time. I didn't want to encroach on anybody. I knew there was another guy at the other end, so I figured if they started getting a little closer to me, I'd move from the area altogether. So here, I'll hurry up and get a shot of the fish. You may even see me look back behind me to see where that other guy is. If you look, you'll see him at the very point of the rock wall. And then right now you can kind of see him off in the distance. There's another guy in front of me that I had already spoke to and let him know that I go to the other end. Rather than leave altogether, they were far enough away that I figured I could fish for a few minutes here. If either one started coming towards me, I'd just leave. And it was kind of an overcast day. The day before it was kind of sunny. I wish it was. I wish it was sunny. I mean, it's more fun to fish in that kind of weather. So yeah, it was 16.5 inch was my first fish of the day. Short time later, I caught another one, and that one was like 13.5. I finally had moved just to give those guys some room. I went out kind of in the middle of nowhere. I had caught a couple fish here the day before. And if you notice, I'm holding my rod tip high. There's a reason for doing that. It's to try to keep it out of the weeds a little bit better and have less resistance or less tension on the line. And if you notice, the reason I'm jerking it there is not necessarily to give it action, but to keep the bait so it stayed vertical rather than lay flat. Most of the time what I would do is just drag it through the weeds, and if it hung up, then I'd kind of pull it through. But that's why I'm holding it so high. I know it looks a little unorthodox, but I wanted to keep the line off the water and off the weeds because I was fishing pretty shallow. There were a lot of weeds right on the bottom, or right on the surface, I mean. So here shortly, I believe, I catch a pretty good fish. The problem is, I think I had turned off the camera because I hadn't caught a fish for a while. I just turned it off to save some battery life. But I think shortly here I do catch a fish. And there it is. That one was another, I think, 16.5 inch fish. 16.5. So I believe I'm still in the same general area here. I'm using a fatty bottom hopper by Berkeley. I switched between the shorter version and the longer version. I'm using a green pumpkin, and pretty much that's all I used all day. It was working good. It seemed silly to change. I haven't caught any really quality fish, but I was hoping that I would still get some here eventually on it. I did use some chatterbaits. I used spinner baits the day before, and I caught fish. But all my better fish the day before, pre-fishing, came on the fatty bottom hopper. So it's kind of like leaving fish to find fish. I figured if I'm catching them on it, I'm not going to change baits. So you can see it's pretty windy. You can see the flag in the background. And there I hook a really good fish, and it comes off. And I think that actually cost me some points there, and I could have been higher up on the board. I wound up in 7th out of 62, but I think that could have moved me up to at least 5th. That was a good fish I lost there. I was a little disappointed, but I figured, hey, there's still more in the area, so I would stay there, and I didn't lose hope. I did finally catch one there, and it was one of my bigger fish of the day, I believe. Once again, I had turned off the camera, don't ask me why. All this time I thought the camera behind me was working, and later on I find out that it wasn't even on. And what I was doing is I'd just normally throw out my anchor, so I'd stay in that spot because it was so windy. I don't have pedals. I just paddle or use my trolling motor in the back of the kayak. So this way I could stay in that spot. What I would do is just lift it sometimes enough to get it off the bottom, and let the wind was blowing hard enough that I'd just let drift, 30, 40 feet, and then drop it back down and fish that area. Worked out pretty good for me. The other thing is, I was thinking, because of these fronts that came through, the reason I went to the rocks in the beginning was because I thought, well, they're going to be holding tight because of the front coming through. They weren't. They were, most of my fish, almost all my fish, except in the very beginning, came out in the middle of the wheat, different types of vegetation. If I was in the mossy, slimy kind of, if I was getting a lot of that on my hook, I didn't catch much fish. I would move until I found vegetation just below the surface or on the surface. So I'm measuring my fish right now, getting everything prepared, and for anybody that's never done this, you gotta photograph it on a catch board. It's got to be a catch board. The mouth has to be closed, and the mouth has to be touching, or the front of the fish has to be touching the end of the board, or it will either get deducted for points, or you'll get disqualified on that fish. Will get thrown out if the mouth is open too much. So what I do is I kind of lean my board up on top of a part of the kayak, so the board is on an angle which forces the fish's head down into the board. That way I don't, hopefully, and I try not to ever hold my fish. I want to have a real clean shot of the fish. A lot of people put their hands over it, but I figure there's less issues if nothing's touching the fish when you take the photograph. And so I usually take multiple pictures, which can be detrimental at times. I've missed fish that I should have posted that would have helped me, and I didn't post them because I had so many pictures, I missed them. So here I'm going to put it back in the net, but then I decided to do a selfie of it. I like doing that with some of the bigger fish. So I do a little selfie, goofy face, but it's mine. So then I put it back in, and what I'm going to do is check and make sure all my pictures came out all right before I let the fish go. I've made that mistake in the beginning where I'd take some pictures, let it go, and then realize I didn't have any good images, or maybe the mouth was opened or something, so I couldn't even use the fish. And once I realize I got some good footage and or good photos, I'll let the fish go here. I try to keep the net in the water so that way the fish is in the water. That way I don't have the fish flopping around on the kayak. So that was one of my bigger fish of the day. The one that I lost previously, I think, was at least that big just by the fight. And I think that really would have helped me. But hey, it is what it is. We all lose fish and it's going to happen again. Here I realized my front camera stopped working. I didn't realize that until a few minutes later. And I finally reached around and made sure the back camera was working too. I wanted to get footage on both of them. And at this point, this is one of the bigger fish, I believe, of the day, at least for me. And don't ask me why, how I got, it looks like I parted my hair in the back. You know, 4:30 in the morning, you're getting ready. Apparently I must have, I don't know what I did, but it looks pretty goofy, but nothing I can do about it. I didn't even know it was like that until afterwards. This is a really good fish here. And I'm ecstatic at this point. I'm going, please don't come off, don't come off. And then when it jumps here, I'm going, oh yeah, that's a good one. And I grabbed the net so far back I could hardly lift it up. And there's only like an hour left in the tournament at this point, maybe not even that much. I almost gave up hope prior to this. I checked and I think I was in 10th or 11th spot. And I was almost to the point where I was just going to start heading back to the ramp. I'm thinking, well, I'm happy with 10th or 11th. You know, it's better than last place, I guess. But then I hooked this big one and I'm going, there's still hope. Now, I didn't check everybody's score after I took this photos of this fish, and I checked the board. I believe either this fish or the next fish, I moved up to 5th spot at a certain point. Had I really paid attention to what everybody else had, this last half hour, I might have really pushed it, realizing that we were so close. There was only a matter of an inch or two between, I think, second and where I was at, and at least a half an inch from where I was at to the next guy. All I needed was one decent fish. I think my next fish is in the 14-inch range. Had I caught another 16, I would have moved up a spot or two. I guess I didn't fish hard enough. I think if I really would have stayed, I moved off this area after that, where I should have just stayed there till the very end. By this time, my battery had died for my trolling motor and my fish finder. So what I was doing is just kind of using the wind to blow me back towards the boat ramp as I fished. And I really think if I would have really pushed it, I might have been able to get another bigger fish here, but who knows. So I do another selfie here. I'm pretty ecstatic at this point. If you heard me when I hooked the fish and what I was saying, you'd understand how happy I was and excited. I just wish the front camera was still working at this point. Kind of the different angles make the fish look different, you know, size and stuff. But you'll see here, I post another picture of the fish on the board. Right now I'm kind of checking also my standings. So that one was 17 3/4, almost 18 inches. That would have been nice. And that's when I realized I moved up to 5th. It might have been after this fish, this next fish here. And I caught fish in between there. I just didn't bother to video any of them because they were smaller fish. I think I caught like a 14. I had a couple 13s that I got rid of, that I caught early on. But I went a couple hours before this was weird because the fish hit and I missed them. I'm thinking, oh, well, that's it. And I don't know if it's the same fish or another fish, but it came right back and grabbed it. And so this was, I think, the last fish of the day I got. I had pulled my anchor after this, and I drifted along, which, like I said, in hindsight, I probably would have been better just to stay there. You can also see, like at the end of my paddle, you can see the vegetation on the surface. That's what I was looking for, areas like that. The fish seemed to be holding in that, the front pushed them out, I guess. I mean, maybe some people caught them up close to shore, but I didn't fish a lot of close to shore because almost every area that I went to, there were already people all along shore. There was a big boat tournament and a kayak tournament both. So I kind of went to areas where nobody else was at, you know. I mean, I'd see some people off in the distance, but I had it pretty much to myself. There was, at this point, I think somebody pretty close to me. That's why I looked up to see if they had seen me catch a fish, you know. Not that kayak guys aren't quite as bad. They don't move in on you. They give you your space, or they'll come over and ask you if they can fish along close to you. Most of them are pretty cool people. I mean, I have a lot of respect for them, and a lot of them came from big boats and stuff. So that one was like 14 1/4. I think that was the last fish I posted, and there was my total, 7 out of 62, which I'm still in the top 10. I was happy. So thanks for watching, and I'll be posting some more here hopefully soon. I got some more videos to edit.